It was at the Alexandria Museum that punctuation and grammar were invented by Aristophanes. Before this, one word ran into the next with no spaces between them. There were no question marks, periods, or exclamation points either. Reading was hard. And 2,000 years ago, books were handwritten on scrolls of animal skins or papyrus, paper made from a tall grass that grows along the Nile. In the library at Alexandria, there were 700,000 papyrus scrolls and 40 librarians who, just like modern-day librarians, helped readers find what they were looking for and kept the materials in order. Each scroll was rolled up on a painted stick and tied with a colored string with a name tag attached. Often the scrolls were tucked into clay jars or simply placed on wooden shelves. There was a lot of rolling and tagging and tying that had to be done to keep a library as large as the one at Alexandria in order. Aristophanes fit right in with all his questions and ideas. In fact, he got a new nickname, pentathlos. The word refers to an athlete who competes in 5 different events. It had also come to mean all-rounder in Greek. They called him that because he was good at so many different things. It was not long after he arrived that the head librarian died and Aristophanes was appointed in his place. For a question asker and a list maker like Aristophanes, being the head librarian was a dream come true. Now he could start to find answers to all of his questions. And the questions that were beginning to interest him the most were the ones right under his own 2 feet, questions about the earth, geography. As chief librarian, Aristophanes was kept busy helping other scholars find information. He also had to keep in the good graces of his employer, King Ptolemy, who had a touchy and nervous temperament. In fact, a royal flatterer was employed just to keep the king's spirits up. But Aristophanes himself had to be ready with compliments and praise for the king at all times. So on one occasion, when he had solved a particularly difficult geometry problem, Aristophanes dedicated the solution to the king. He then wrote a little poem about it and had it carved into a column that he had erected in the king's honor. Aristophanes' main interest, however, was not writing poetry to flatter the king. It was geography. Once upon a time it had been thought that the earth was flat. Then for a while people thought that it was the shape of a cylinder. But by the time Aristophanes was born, they knew for sure that the earth was round, a sphere. They had known this for at least 100 years. But Aristophanes had a lot of other questions about the earth. How far does the earth tilt on its axis? Does the ocean go all the way around the earth? One of the most interesting questions of all was how big around was the earth? It seemed impossible to figure out, for one could not walk around the earth without running into an ocean, and at that time the Greeks did not have ships that they would dare sail as far as these oceans might reach. Could one, however, stand in one spot and figure it out? Aristophanes began his research, unrolling scroll upon scroll, looking for bits and pieces of information that would help him answer his questions. He soon realized that the information he was looking for was scattered all over the place, in math scrolls, scrolls about people, and scrolls about history. In the richest library on earth, there was no single scroll that combined even a few of the answers. For someone like Aristophanes who liked to organize information, it was clear that before he could find any answers, the facts must be brought together and rolled up in one single scroll. Aristophanes knew what he must do. He had to write the first complete geography book. It would take Aristophanes many years. Much of the information about the earth that Aristophanes wanted to include was mathematical and could never be found in scrolls or by talking to people from other lands. Aristophanes had to figure out methods of knowing, of measuring, of describing. And more than anything, he wanted to measure the circumference of the earth. He knew his book would be incomplete without it. Nobody had ever thought of measuring the size of such a large circle as the circumference of the earth. Nobody except for Aristophanes. Perhaps he imagined the earth as a grapefruit. If it is sliced in half, you can see its sections. In order to measure the distance all the way around the edge of the grapefruit, the circumference, you would need to know only the distance along the edge of one section, the arc, and how many of these same size sections it would take to make up the whole grapefruit. How could Aristophanes find out how many sections were needed? He knew that every circle, whether it is as small as a grapefruit or as big as the earth, is made up of 360 degrees. So if he could measure the inside angle of one section of his imaginary grapefruit in degrees, he could divide 360 by that number and know how many sections of that size would make up the whole.